want to know what it said word for word?
Well, go on. Why not?
All right. I posted, would it be going too far to suggest that Hayes at the Hitler Youth of the recruitment world? Which was all positive, and then about 50 comments in, somebody said, I think you might have gone a bit too far this time. But it got to a point where there was an avalanche of so much hatred, and probably by 200 comments in, I was basically being described as a child molesting Holocaust denier. I mean, it was nuts.
I've been guilty of giving recruiters a hard time,
Yeah.
especially on LinkedIn. I don't really think they do themselves many favours. And also, I saw a post recently that you'd commented on. If you put recruiters are in Google, the suggestions that come up are horrendous.
Yeah.
Why do you think people dislike recruiters so much?
Okay, that's a complicated question. I'm not so sure they dislike recruiters as much as they say they do. I think what they really dislike is recruitment.
Yeah.
Because it's a bit of a jamboree of bullshit, to be honest. A lot of agencies are dealing in numbers. They're throwing lots of stuff up in the air. Administratively, they're not always going to be very tight, and I'm being really generous there in terms of getting back to people, giving them feedback, and that's fundamentally is what pisses job seekers, candidates off.
Yeah.
Is they go for an interview and don't hear anything, or don't hear anything meaningful.
So sometimes would you say then that the hate is justified from a candidate's point of view?
Yeah, I mean, hate's a strong word. There's an awful lot of frustration, and a lot of recruiters do deserve some of that frustration being taken out of them. But I think a lot more of it than people perhaps give credit to is down to just the frustration of looking for a job or going for an interview. Because, going for an interview is not a pleasant experience for most people.
No. Playing devil's advocate, I don't think I could do the recruitment job because you want to hide into nothing really. You're promising one thing to the person you're working on behalf of, the client, then also you're promising one thing to the candidates. It makes me kind of think it's an industry built on lies. I always think there's at least one person in that chain, probably more, that are lying, whether it be the job ads lying, the actual job roles lying, either the hiring managers lying, the recruiters lying, the candidates lying. How many CVs don't tally up to what they've got on LinkedIn?
It's a strong way of putting it because lying it denotes a certain aspect of complicity, which I'm not sure is always there. And I think what drives a lot of the perceived lying and or bullshit around all those things you've just mentioned is the fact that the vast majority of recruitment agencies and clients and hiring managers and HR are working together on contingency, which is they give the job to 5 agencies. Those 5 agencies will go and basically look in the same place for a narrow profile of candidate. A lot of those candidates end up getting contacted by 2 or 3 of those agencies within a short time frame, which brings the employer into some disrepute because the better candidates think, well, if the hiring company are this messy in how they recruit, what are they going to be like to work for? But nobody has any time to sort of verify whether the spec is accurate, to challenge the client on whether somebody really does have to have 10 years experience in whatever the job discipline is, or whether they really need to have a degree. They don't put any effort into the marketing of that job. Changing jobs is incredibly important and incredibly expensive if you get it wrong. Beggars belief. And which is why I'm so anti-contingency. I just don't see any reason why a recruiter who knows what they're doing shouldn't be able to convince a company to only work with them and give them a little bit of the fee. It doesn't have to be a third, which is what I charge, but it doesn't have to be a third of the fee up front, but enough to A, keep them both honest, and B, give the recruiter a little bit of a budget so they can put out better marketing.
Well, if you believe
and manage
in
the process better.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you believe in the process, you would actually pay some of that up front, I think. And you believe in that recruitment company to go and find you the right candidate. You've got to believe in
the recruiter as opposed to the recruitment company. And generally it's probably going to be people who are a little bit more experienced, both in recruitment and in life.
My experience being the other end, so I've worked in startups for 8-9 years, and one of the startups I used to be employed in, I was a sales manager for this company. And we work with a lot of recruitment companies and recruiters to find us staff, like sales staff and stuff like that. And to sort of paraphrase something that I've seen you write, often recruiters would promise you James Bond, but would deliver Mr. Bean. This guy turned up to us, and his CV almost matched word for word exactly what we wanted, even in terms of the technical skills for a role. And it was the typical, polished bullshit that corporate recruiters send over to you. So he was a black belt ninja superstar, astronaut in some technical software that we needed him to use. Yeah. The guy turns up, he's interviewed okay, and we thought, do you know what? Where we are, it's hard to find people with these skills. So he turned up to work for the business, and the boss was made up. He was singing his praises, saying how good this guy was. Sat him down in front of his computer, turns his computer on, he goes, "What's this?" That's the software that you are a black belt ninja at. Never used it before, didn't have a clue.
And whose idea was it to lie on the CV, his or the agency's?
Well, we asked him, and he said, "Oh no, the recruitment." I sent my CV to the recruiter, and the recruiter said, "Oh no, we'll rewrite it for you to make you more attractive to the client." Yeah. And it kind of just thought, we're never going to use you again now. But if you had sent us the right person, or we're honest, because we could have found that person a different job within the organisation. Yeah. Because we were always recruiting for multiple roles. Yeah. But straight away, it's like, we've now got to get rid of the candidate. You're not going to get paid. You've just pissed us off.
You didn't hire him, no? Him or her?
Well, they didn't last very long.
Okay. But, I think a lot of agencies will do things like that, which on the face of it looks pretty dumb. But I think they're playing to the fact that what often happens is they'll get someone in on an interview in a room with a hiring manager, and the hiring manager likes them on a personal level, and then finds some kind of rationale for hiring them. Yeah, that's okay. We can train that they don't really know that much about, and suddenly they made money. I'm not condoning it, but I'm just trying to understand why it happens, and I think that's why it happens sometimes.
Do you think then a lot of the problem with recruiters, especially on LinkedIn, is that they produce bad copy? Like, especially some of the job ads I see terrible. It's literally like they've just gone into an Excel spreadsheet or copied and pasted a template from Microsoft Word, and every single job ad for the last 15 years has been the same.
Yeah, well, what a lot of them are doing is just copying the job spec that's given to them by the hiring company. Yeah. And then just removing any evidence of who that hiring company is. The smart ones. The stupid ones, leave the evidence in there. Look, in their defense, because they're working on so many jobs that they're not going to fill, they just don't have the time to craft anything that's half decent. A lot don't have the ability and haven't been taught how to craft something that might be more attractive to people that are reading it. But yeah, I'm going to come across somewhat biased as someone who runs copywriting training courses, but I think of all the things a recruitment agency does, the most important is that they help their clients sell their jobs and make them more attractive to candidates without lying.
Yeah, 100%.
And for me, that's the most fundamental skill. And because there's only two aspects to recruitment really. They both begin with A. They're attraction and assessment. Nearly all of the heavy lifting in recruitment is done in how you attract people to the job, how you get them into the pipeline, and then how you assess them. Yeah. Yeah. And assessment is the hardest part, by the way. Recruitment agencies do very little assessment. Yeah. Most of them are niche specialists. So because they're dealing with something so niche, there's the assumption that if somebody's been doing this job for 10 years, they must be good at it, they must know what they're doing, therefore, why do I need to interview them?
Yeah, but how many people cruise along in a job for 10 years and aren't very good at a job? I know loads of sales managers and people that work in really, they've not pushed themselves, they've not progressed in that job role, they've been average at best for the last 15 years of their career.
No, I agree. I agree. It's a complicated area. We could talk about this for another hour. A lot of people tend to get hired for their attitudes and beliefs as opposed to what they know. I think of all of the candidates, I've been doing this now for a long time. I think I've been in recruitment 30 years, nearly 28, 29 years. Anecdotally, most of the best candidates that I've seen that I've placed that have gone on to do well in the job that I've placed them in have been candidates for whom that job has represented some kind of logical career evolution. So in other words, they didn't quite match the spec, so there was a little bit of growing into the job that they needed to do. So they kind of started the job with something to prove. Yeah. And generally people with something to prove tend to work harder, and people that work harder tend to do the better. That's the basic equation.
That reminds me, I would go and look on LinkedIn for people that I liked how they posted, their content, how they write posts, how they wrote. Yes. I would go and make direct approaches. Now, I don't know if this is necessarily the right thing to be saying, but in startups, it's a different world. It's chaos. I know.
If you're looking for writers or people to produce content, it's the ideal place.
Yeah.
Because they're giving a demonstration of their ability to do the job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a perfect example. And I have asked him if I can mention this. So there's Carl Connor. He worked at the time for a company writing business proposals if someone wanted to sell their business. And I could tell he was a talented writer, but he was writing boring topics and subjects and stuff. So I got in contact with him and said, do you fancy doing some freelance work for us? And we give him like a little test piece. He did a test piece for us, and it come back and it was really, really good. Yeah. And then we just said, how much would it cost to get you stop doing that job that you do currently to come and work for us? Even though the job role we wanted him for wasn't what he'd ever done before. Right. He'd never done that before, but I could see his skills were transferable.
Yeah. No, that's a great point.
If we had put a job out through a recruitment company, he probably wouldn't have even applied to that job role because he would think, well, I don't do that job. So he wouldn't think I could write scripts or I could storyboard content or anything like that, because all he was doing is writing proposals. Yeah.
No, I know Carl. I've never met him, but I know him to the extent that I've worked with him. I've given him work several times, and he's produced some really good stuff for me. And I kind of pay Carl as much for his thinking as I do his writing, actually. Yeah. He's quite a creative guy.
So, but he was an example of where we've just gone, do you know what, we like that person, let's go get him. And I could probably give you 4 or 5 other examples where someone had posted something on LinkedIn, they weren't necessarily looking for a job, they weren't applying for a job, and they weren't doing the job role that I thought they would fit into our business. Sure. And I would just say, I like you, I like what you're about, I like how you conduct yourself online, how you talk, what does it take to get you here? And like you said, maybe that was they could see a natural career progression. And even though they had to prove something, I'm not really cut out for this role on paper. But I'll have to adapt my skills to...
Most people generally, at least up to a certain point in their career or an age, tend to be attracted to jobs where they feel they're going to learn something. Or they're going to become a bigger, better version of themselves. Very, very few of the best candidates that I've ever seen have made sideways moves. And then gone on to pull up trees in that new job, having made a sideways move.
So, on the sideways move things, I notice a lot of recruiters that have less than 6 months experience at multiple recruitment companies. And to me, all that says is you talk a good game, you interview well, you promise the world, you move to a new recruitment company, and then you don't deliver, you get found out, you move to another recruitment company, rinse and repeat basically. You get a little £1,000, £2,000 boost on your basic, but you're shit at recruiting. That's all it says to me. I might be wrong there.
It's the answer's never black and white. I think there's some grey. I'm not defending people that do that, and some of them are probably, only another year or two away of probably getting out of the industry or becoming an HR person. Sorry, HR. But some of them are looking for the right environment, the right culture, the right sector sometimes. Some people are just in the wrong sector. I've seen people move into recruitment having spent 3 years in customer service, let's say, and suddenly they're hiring accountants. Or Java developers, and go, why don't you just hire customer service? Go to an agency that specialises in placing customer service people. You've done the job. You'll have instant credibility with clients and candidates. You'll know how to assess candidates better because you've done the job yourself. But I don't see that. Happening very often.
That goes back to I said about I'd go and pick people to come and work for us. We had a new job role come up in our business, and we went and hired what our customer was. So we went and said, that is our customer, or that is the people that we identify as potential prospects and someone that would buy our product. Why don't we go and have someone that does that job role and bring them in-house, so we can then use them to talk to our potential prospects and customers. And we found that really worked. And I don't want to go all Bridget on everyone now, but I would say Carl and that other person I'm talking about were probably 2 of our best hires ever.
Did they take much training?
No, not really.
Because that's what puts a lot of people off doing things like that.
Carl didn't really need any training. He was a good writer. So it's like, these are the topics you're going to be writing about. It needs to kind of sound like us or have this kind of tone. Okay. And the other person I'm talking about, like, very little training. And like I said, they're flying in their careers now. Yeah. They were really good. And we found that was the best way to recruit people. Right. I think one of the most dangerous things for recruiters, especially when they're writing job ads and why they're so bad, it's that whole mentality of, well, we've always written them in this way, or we've always done it that way around here.
Yeah, a lot of people say that that we meet on the course. It's they get sucked into this. This is what everyone else is doing. All the other ads look this way, therefore that must be the way to do it. And of course, they're thinking from the perspective of recruiters rather than whenever you write anything, you've got to think about the audience. Yeah. It's the people that you want to respond to whatever it is you're going to write. It's the fundamental basis of sales, essentially. So yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense when you analyze it, but people just get sucked into, well, that's what I'll do. But yeah, nothing gets better if you just keep copying what everyone else does.
I've seen you put out a blog, and I think it was a story about some monkeys and water. Monkey. So
the story goes that some scientists put 5 monkeys in a cage and put a stepladder in the corner and put a banana on the top of the stepladder, and then observed. And when a monkey went up the stepladder to try and get the banana, they sprayed the monkey with a hose with cold water. And then the monkey sort of climbs back down the ladder again and doesn't go up. And then another monkey tries, and they hose that monkey down as well. So they then replace the monkeys they hose with new monkeys. Whenever they put a new monkey in and it goes up the ladder to try and get the banana, the other monkeys grab hold of the new monkey and beat him up to stop him trying to get the banana, because they don't want to get hosed. And so eventually nobody tries to get the banana, because they've been conditioned to think that it's so bad.
Even though they've replaced all the original monkeys that got the original punishment, they now realise that this is how it is around here. You don't go and get the banana.
Exactly. So it's kind of groupthink spreading itself. It's like a little virus that spreads amongst people.
We're not saying recruiters are monkeys and your commission is bananas.
Necessarily.
By the way. I don't think recruiters really help themselves. It's that whole, and it might be stereotypical, but it's the whole, I've got my first commission check, so I'm going to buy a knockoff Rolex, and I have it in my picture, and I take a photograph of my steering wheel and post that. It's all nonsense. Yeah. It's like the cliched Wolf of Wall Street reputation. It's that I think is actually supported by the bullshit that a lot of these young predominantly male recruiters post online.
Yeah.
That whole, like, is this if their training is just sitting there and watching the Wolf of Wall Street? Like, they all think they're Jordan Belfort.
Yeah, because they tend to work in sort of big open plan environments. There's a lot of machismo getting dealt out. There's a bell gets rung every time somebody does a deal.
Peacocking wankers.
Yeah, and these people, they're not really recruiters. They're spot trading candidates. Yeah. You know, in the same way that, you know, Jordan Belfort and his cronies were spot trading whatever bullshit they were selling. They're just spot trading candidates on the fringes of other people's recruitment processes. So yeah, it breeds that kind of mentality, and the kind of the worship of someone who makes money getting on the phone and being persuasive.
But it's mad. Like, why look at him as the pinnacle of success when he made a career from ripping people off from their life savings?
Yeah.
Wearing a wire, grassing up all his friends so he got less time, and now he's peddling the next shit, which is it's the same scam pretty much.
Yeah, I wrote a blog about Jordan Belfort a few years back, just commenting on that very thing, about the fact that he's now just another form of the same huckster he used to be. Yeah. Except he's now getting on stage trying to teach people how to sell, and most of the feedback I've seen is that it's rubbish.
No.
But yeah, in this blog, I described him as the only person who's ever cut more lines than disabled kids in Disneyland. And
but you got the keyboard warriors on straight away.
Yeah, of course. There's always something going on. I've got a disabled kid. How dare you? You know. Like I'm supposed to know they've got a disabled kid.
Did you get any cocaine users getting on there?
Funny enough, no. Nobody said, I love doing coke. How dare you associate my habit with disabled kids?
The silent majority.
Deeply offended, mate.
What would you say then was the post that got you the most hate or was the most ill-received by the sector?
You want to know what it said word for word?
Well, go on. Why not?
All right. I posted, would it be going too far to suggest that Hayes are the Hitler Youth of the recruitment world? And basically what happened was the first 40, 50 comments were from people who knew me, who were in recruitment, who got the joke, and I'll explain the joke if it needs explaining in a moment. People said, that's funny, and LinkedIn would be the same without you, Mitch. And it was all positive, and then about 50 comments in, somebody said, I think you might have gone a bit too far this time. And then someone else said, I wouldn't be surprised if Hayes' legal team got hold of you. I then commented, I then posted a comment straight after that saying, I've just been contacted by a firm of solicitors. Apparently the Hitler Youth are not happy being compared to Hayes.
Brilliant.
Just to kind of demonstrate the fact that, this was a bit of fun.
It's a piss take. It's obvious it's a piss take to a normal person, isn't it?
It's a joke. I mean, there's, for anything to be funny, there has to be an element of truth in it. And really after that, it started to go downhill. So 150 comments in. I mean, it went to about 800, 900 comments. It got about 1,500 likes. I mean, that in my world is viral. It isn't in other people's. But it got ugly. It got really ugly. And I was prepared to defend the joke, but it got to a point where there was an avalanche of so much hatred, nearly all of which was from people who weren't working in recruitment, didn't know me, were third degree connections.
Yeah.
And, probably by 200 comments in, I was basically being described as a child molesting Holocaust denier. I mean, it was nuts.
Disclaimer, we've actually done a background check and Mitch is neither of those things. But what I was going to say is, I think on LinkedIn, that's the problem, you see. So you can post something and people that get it understand it's a joke. I think I can tell when someone's joking or someone's saying something to be provocative or to get a reaction. To me, it's obvious. It's when someone comments. So if you comment on a post and I'm connected to you, but I'm not connected to the person you've made a comment on the original post. Yeah. Some people will just jump on the bandwagon, not read the original post and make their own decision, and just say, well, Mitch is infuriated by this, so I'm going to be infuriated by this. And it's like, it's sort of like Chinese whispers then. By the time they're making, and that's how come it's gone from being, it's an observation about haze in recruitment and, recruiting young, straight people fresh out of uni or college, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
To the Hitler Youth, and then they're saying, that's related to the Holocaust.
Yeah, look, I was prepared to defend the joke because I'm not stupid. I anticipate that one or two people might get a bit touchy about the fact that I used the H word, but I didn't describe Hayes as the SS of the recruitment world, and that would have been dumb and serious. But it's the Third Reich's version of the Boy Scouts that I was comparing them to. There was such an avalanche of comments. I just couldn't get involved in any kind of debate. But my argument was that people are adding dots to join up so that they can get outraged and offended. Of course.
Well, it's that faux anger. It's the whole thing on LinkedIn.
My granddad was in Auschwitz. How dare you?
My granddad worked for Hayes. I didn't get offended by it. So really, you could have changed Hayes out with any of the big boys, really.
Well, the next part of the story explains why I chose Hayes. So on the day that I made that post, I was in the offices of a recruitment agency, a client that I was doing some marketing work for, and one of their recruiters was chatting to another recruiter by my desk and was telling him that he'd just been phoned by a recruiter pretending to be a candidate trying to find the identity of a client for a job ad that he'd run. Yeah. And he said it was a recruiter from Hayes. And apparently the recruiter from Hayes was so stupid that he rang from an office line and this guy just rang back and someone said, "Hello, Hayes Recruitment," or something like that. And I thought, wow, do Hayes really need to do stupid shit like that? And then, and this is bizarre, I logged onto LinkedIn barely 5 minutes later, and the very first thing I saw at the top of my feed on LinkedIn was another recruiter who works for a completely different agency complaining of exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And then everything kind of came together, and I remembered this joke and I posted it, and it just came out. And that's why I chose Hayes. Had those two recruiters been complaining about Manpower or Michael Page, it would have been those. Yeah, so I've got no issue with Hayes. But then, and the other thing that was interesting is when I posted that, the next day I had a phone call from Recruitment Grapevine or HR Grapevine, one of them, asking if they were telling me they're going to run a story on this and would I like to comment, and I politely declined. And then I thought, Christ, I better go and see what they write. And so I checked in 3-4 hours later, and there was this headline that said, "Well-known recruiter makes anti-Semitic remark on LinkedIn." And I said, what the fuck? Anti-Semitic remark, really? And to their credit, the next day they changed the headline because I think somebody there realised that wasn't factually accurate.
But even that goes to show that someone there that hasn't seen the original post, hasn't understood it in the context it was meant to, has then gone and it's headline. See how something's got blown out of proportion? That's someone not really understanding where it's come from.
Well, they're probably trying to sell clicks as well, aren't they? They want more people to sort of click on that and read it. And then next day I went back when I noticed that they changed the headline. To their credit, and then there were I think about 10 or 12 comments from people, most of them giving me a good kicking. One of which, interestingly, was from the CEO of Hayes. Yeah, he described me as a what did he describe me as? A weirdo and a troll, and why anyone would do business with this guy, And I took a screenshot of it. Yeah, and I was going to use it as a promo piece for my book when I brought my book out.
Well, that's almost word for word my Tinder bio.
Is it?
Yeah, a weirdo and a troll, and I wouldn't do business with him. So that might be where I've seen it.
Well, look, my missus wouldn't let me use it. She said, just leave that whole incident alone.
How has it impacted you then in terms of
it's
business?
It's helped.
There you go.
It's helped because, and Lucy did some analysis on this, and she said, look, in 3 days, your follower number's gone up by 1,400 people.
Yeah.
You have to accept that some of those will be ambulance chasers thinking, oh, this guy's a bit of a nutter. Maybe he'll do other stupid shit.
Let's watch him flush his career down the
which is fine if you like watching that kind of stuff. But I lost. Probably there were a number of people that work for the big agencies that probably took a disliking to me. But I'm never going to do business with large recruitment agencies. Yeah. All of the work I do is with the smaller boutiques. So it worked to my favour.
I couldn't imagine working for a large corporate, and I mean just in general.
No, me neither.
I think it's horrendous. And I think working in startups exposes you to far more. You learn far more. It's like chaotic, and you have to almost take the many roles within a business because you've not got enough hands on deck.
Sure.
So I think you learn a lot more. Would you say it's the same with recruiting then? Would you say you probably learn more as a new recruiter in a smaller boutique recruitment firm?
Okay, it's a difficult one. I think there's two parts to that answer. I think in the long run, yes, but it will be tougher. Yeah. Therefore, the fallout rate would be higher.
Yeah.
And I think if the same young recruiter started with one of the big agencies we mentioned earlier, they're probably more likely to succeed statistically. I've got nothing to back that up. It's just my kind of general feel. Yeah. Just because there's a formal routine that they're going to be put through.
Yeah. So there's more pressure on you in a smaller environment then, because obviously everybody counts. So.
Yeah, and you know, it's tougher for smaller companies to give any kind of coherent formal training. Yeah. To somebody, you know, if it's a 4, 5, 6, 10 man business, it's tough, unless they put 3, 4, 5 grand away to send them out externally.
Yeah.
And they've got a plan, but not that many do that. They want someone ready to just plug in and start making money.
I think some of the smaller boutique recruitment firms are understanding personal branding a lot more online than some of the big ones. Some of the big ones I think is horrendous. It's the grown-up equivalent or the LinkedIn equivalent of school photo day. You've got 30 profiles, all the same, smiling the same way in front of the same background. I think the bigger the firm, really, it's so far removed from personal branding. It's like they don't understand even the basic concept of it.
Yeah, I generally agree. And I think most of the best marketing in general, whether it's recruitment and there's not that much great marketing in recruitment, sadly, but generally comes from smaller, funkier, progressive companies that are growing.
So, Mitch, are Recruitment Awards bullshit?
Yeah, they're probably worse than most other industry awards. At least in the advertising industry, you've got something tangible and quantifiable, like an ad campaign that can be judged. But in recruitment, you know, nobody sees what goes on behind the curtain. It's just an opportunity for people to get dressed up and pissed up and win an awards, which I'm fine with, by the way. Yeah. I don't mind the award ceremony. It's just then how they will then try and use that to attract more people to come work for them by saying we're the best recruitment agency in the country, and they're clearly not.
An award-winning recruiter. Award-winning recruiter. We self-nominated. We paid for the award.
Sure. And look, Louise Triance at UK Recruiter, who I'm incredibly fond of. I think she's great, and probably it was only because she was dishing. She does an annual recruitment blog award. I won it one year, and I accepted it because it was Louise. But I didn't wear it as a badge, and I didn't talk about it. And in fact, I took the piss out of it. I wrote a blog that took the piss out of it.
I saw that. That must have been satisfying, right? Because what you wrote in that blog about receiving the award is kind of how I feel about it anyway. You know, like, why haven't I won it earlier? Yeah. If anyone's not seen that blog.
No, I genuinely believe that. I'd looked at that award for the last, because I was nominated a couple of those times. Yeah. Which I didn't comment on. I just watched and I looked at the others, and the ones that won they weren't regular. They were probably writing, 8 or 9 blogs a year, and I was writing 4 or 5 a month. Yeah. I was probably getting more readership, certainly via LinkedIn.
Say it, Mitch. Their blogs were shit, and you were a better writer than them.
Shit, and mine was way better.
That's it.
I didn't understand why I didn't win it the previous 3 years, and that's what the blog.
So when you did get the blog, then did you think, in a weird way, that being legitimised might have damaged the brand that you'd created? Because you were always like an outsider. So did you think it might affect you differently then? Because it was almost like
no, it was. It's to be, I hope Louise doesn't take this wrong, but it's not a big deal. Yeah, I didn't talk about it. 1 or 2 other people commented on it, and I just ignored it.
So maybe now they've had Ricky Gervais host the Oscars. The next thing is Mitch Sullivan to host some massive industry award.
That would be a thing, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Would you do it?
No. Well, unless two things would have to be in play. I'd have to have been retired. Yeah. So not actively making a living out of the industry, I might be tempted, just to be wheeled out. Oh, do you remember that old guy? Yeah, he used to make a lot of noise on LinkedIn 5 years ago.
The Hitler Youth guy.
The Hitler Youth guy.
Whole career, and that's what you remember.
And which is, is that better than the Hayes guy? Who knows?
Yeah, 100%.
And they'd have to pay me as well. I wouldn't do it for free. I don't know how much because I haven't really thought about it. So
more than what we paid you to attend this?
Way more.
All right, a lot more. So when you were coming on, I asked the keyboard warriors at LinkedIn, is there anything that they are too scared to say to you?
Yeah.
And they can use me.
Too scared.
God,
me?
Yeah, because
anyway.
You might do a blog about them, Mitch.
Yeah.
Bullying them online, you big troll.
Yeah.
So I asked some questions, and these are the ones that made the cut.
Okay.
If you've not made the cut, it's because your questions are shit, so ask better questions next time. I've got one here, which is Sean Figura.
Okay.
And he's in recruitment, actually. He says, how honest is too honest when it comes to describing your clients in marketing?
All your clients. Okay. There is a line. It'll depend on the client and who they are. But I've had clients where the culture has been quite sweary.
Yeah.
And you've got to be able to stand up for yourself. It's quite a lot of banter, and it wasn't a recruitment company. It was an outdoor advertising company. And I tried to reflect that in the ad without saying that explicitly. So I guess my answer is you can be honest to a point, but a lot of it's if you want to be open about the stuff that's not so good, it depends how you say it.
Yeah.
It's all in the delivery.
Don't mention throwing midgets on a Friday afternoon.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Okay.
But for example, when I see recruitment agencies advertising, and it's all bell ringing and sort of yuppie hard nut bullshit, I think, well, okay, if that's the culture, there's nothing wrong with that, because they're just separating the more progressive recruiters who don't want to work in those environments. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So be honest to a point.
Yeah, it
nothing
depends,
that's damaging.
Depends what the bad stuff is.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I mean, if it's that bad, you don't get involved with them. They're not a client.
Of course, yeah, of course. Here's one that I thought was quite interesting. So it's Julian Agadilu, or Julian Agadudu. So he says, why did Mitch ignore my calls that time I tried to sell him lead gen IP tracking software?
Yeah, I remember.
Genuinely.
I remember that.
Can I answer this first?
Sure.
He's now a copywriter.
Yeah.
So I don't think his problem was you not buying it. It was that shit at sales that no one else was buying it either. Otherwise, he wouldn't have changed careers.
Well, actually, to be fair, he wasn't that bad, or else I wouldn't have engaged with him in the first place, actually.
There you go, Julian. You weren't that bad.
And I can't remember the specifics of the interaction. It may well have started with an email, in which case, if he's now writing for a living, his email was probably quite good. Yeah. And I tend to respond positively to people that write interesting emails, because most of the emails that I get, as everyone else does, is, ball-achingly horrible to read. We spoke. I didn't really have a need. Yeah. I said, look, I get most of my leads and inquiries from social media, and when I don't think I needed. I didn't think I needed, but I was interested. I was curious to think, well, maybe there could be something here. But so yeah, I don't. Yeah.
I'm surprised you've answered that honestly. I'd have just said you were shit at sales.
No, I think I like the guy. I've never met him.
Yeah.
So
actually, to be fair,
I don't want to be unkind unnecessarily.
His stuff on LinkedIn's actually quite good.
Yeah.
So if you don't follow him. He's actually worth looking at.
He does write interesting
stuff.
So
I've got one here from David Woolstenholme. First things, David, I hope your wife likes the mask that I sent you and she's enjoying that.
Oh, is that the guy from Australia? He's a branding guy, isn't he?
No. David is so just branding and recruitment, and we wrote a thing together. He asked me some questions on recruitment, and that was the one where I was very stereotypical about recruiters.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just like a bit of a running joke that his wife always likes all my posts before David does. Okay. So I think that she's got a bit of a thing for me.
Right.
So
interesting.
If you are out there, DM me. No. So how long did it take you to write your book? Is his first question.
Okay.
How long was
that? 7 years.
I suppose it was just blogs.
It's blogs, a collection. I'd written over the course of 7-8 year period. I'd written 160 blogs, and I must admit that took me by surprise. But there were some months when I was utterly prolific.
And this is my favourite bit.
So go on.
Which is the person that's attending one of your copywriting courses that's annoyed you the most?
There was generally I wouldn't out anyone. I would never name anyone, but on one of the early courses there were a couple of people from the same agency who basically disagreed with the premise of what the training was built on, which is you need to write for the candidate.
Yeah.
And you need to write in a more conversational, colloquial tone because social media has made that more fashionable. Plus, we were all humans before we were recruiters, so write like a human. Yeah, and because they worked in a certain sector, I think it was insurance or wealth management, and the insinuation was that all the people working in that sector are quite conservative, quite stiff. Therefore, you need to use language, and they couldn't get past that, and so they were a little bit difficult throughout the day. And all that did, it just taught me to pre-qualify people before they come on the course. So I have a conversation with most people before they come.
That's good then. So you're not willing just to take money off anybody. It's like, unless you're going to get something from this, there's no point coming along.
Some people out of not spending money.
In my mind, that's like genuine authenticity. If I can't help you, what's the point in you turning up and wasting your time and my time? It's bullshit, isn't it?
Hey, but it's one of the reasons why I'm not rich.
Next one is Lorraine, and it's which influencer pisses you off the most and why? And that's what I'm taking. It's on LinkedIn.
Honestly, none of them do. I mean, I'm not as aware of as many of them as you probably are. The two obvious ones are the two whose names I'm not even going to mention because we all know who they are.
We all know who they are. We'll animate them in.
Both of them have blocked me. In fact, one of them blocked me twice. He unblocked me, and then I went after him again, and he blocked me again, which I took some pride in, actually.
I won't say who they are, but isn't it interesting how they've made an average of like 5 hires a day for the last 12 years, and they're all the best hire ever, yet have never held a position where they can recruit these people?
Yeah, they're full of shit. They're bullshit. They're just liars. They're plagiarizers. One of them, I have no idea why he does what he does. I can see no logical reason. The other one, she makes money by selling seminars, books, whatever, most of which I've heard is plagiarized from other people's thinking.
And as equality and diversity there, we've picked one male and one female, so no one can accuse us of...
But neither of them pissed me off. There was the other guy who, the Felcher guy.
Josh Felcher from
He's
Banff.
the one that started, I get up at 3 a.m. and then every morning go to the gym. I saw a few of those, and I just thought, what a dick. I just move on. So none of them pissed me off. I'm a little bit surprised that they think that is going to connect with a qualitative part of the social media audience, because most of the people that fall for that are pretty stupid in my view.
Exactly.
So, and normally stupid people don't have buying authority, so I'm kind of mystified by it all.
I suppose then the second part of the question doesn't really count. If you could commit the perfect murder on that person, how would you do it? But you don't want to kill any of them, do you? No.
Not yet.
I would like to book an interview with him and then take my time, make it slow. Yeah. And I'd do a LinkedIn native video of me doing it to go viral. So this is when I physically attacking one of those two people that you said.
Attacking metaphorically as opposed to physically.
Either's fine.
And type in a chair like this.
Yeah. But I put it on LinkedIn purely for the views.
Yeah.
And tag them into their followers.
Sure.
I don't know if they'd like that post, their followers. Look, probably.
People who want some kind of public notoriety have to expect a little bit of backlash. Yeah. I've had a little bit of it, not as much as possibly you and Dan, and certainly not these people.
You want to see my DMs, Mitch?
Yeah, I'd like to, actually.
I get threatened physically every day.
Really?
Every day. People are going to come and cave my head in.
I mean, Dan told me also that he gets abuse. I've had very little of that, I have to be honest. And certainly what little abuse I've had, I haven't had, apart from the Hayes thing, for probably 4, 5, 6 years.
Last one is from Nikki Rukakuku. And she said, if you were arrested but your friend's family had no idea why, what would they instantly assume it was for? Yeah,
like I'm going to answer that honestly. Yeah.
Murder. And it was he murdered someone that asked a stupid question on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Watch yourself.
No one's ever going to answer that question honestly.
No.
Are they?
Are they?
Not me.
I won't.
Sorry, Nikki.
So that's pretty much it, really. So like all good recruitment interviews.
Yeah.
I'm going to end this with a really shit closing question.
Okay.
So, Mitch, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Dead.